Have you ever felt like your emotions were a storm, sudden, wild, and completely beyond control? What if the secret to mastering your emotions was hidden in the quiet flow of a river or the gaze of a meditating sage? This is the story of a boy who turned his deepest emotional struggles into a lifelong path of wisdom, transforming pain into peace and sensitivity into strength. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village tucked between rolling green hills and landscapes so serene they felt like dreams, there lived a deeply respected sage named Rishi. He was more than just wise. People from distant lands spoke of his rare ability to help others master their emotions with calm, clarity, and compassion. But Rishi's journey didn't begin in calm. In fact, it began with chaos, his own inner chaos. As a young boy, he was unusually sensitive. Emotions would rise in him like crashing waves: sorrow, fear, anger, often leaving him overwhelmed and confused. As he grew up in the village, he saw how these powerful emotions tore through the lives of those around him. He watched families split by rage, friendships corroded by jealousy, and hearts sink under the weight of sorrow. These early experiences planted a burning question in his heart. What are emotions, and how can we truly learn to control them? One quiet afternoon, as Rishi sat under the shade of a magnificent Bodhi tree, he became captivated by the gentle flow of a river nearby. Its surface was calm, its journey steady, even as it curved around rocks and slid past fallen leaves. It was then that a realization struck him. Emotions, like rivers, come and go. They rise and fall. They are never permanent. This single insight became the foundation of Rishi's lifelong quest. Eager to go deeper, Rishi left his village to seek out the guidance of a sage known far and wide. Ananda, a master of the mind and emotions, who lived in the high, mist-covered mountains. When Rishi finally arrived at Ananda's remote hermitage, he found the great sage immersed in deep meditation, his face radiating stillness like the surface of a tranquil lake. With deep respect, Rishi bowed and shared his heartfelt yearning to learn the true art of emotional control. Ananda welcomed him with a warm smile and accepted him as a student. What followed were years of intense study. Rishi read ancient teachings, practiced deep meditation, and learned the art of watching his emotions without judgment. Slowly, he discovered the power of mindfulness, the gentle awareness that helped him observe the waves of his inner world without being swept away by them. And yet, even after years of discipline, there came a day when Rishi stood before Ananda, uncertainty clouding his heart. "Master," he said with sincerity, "I've learned to observe my emotions, but in the heat of the moment, I still struggle to control them. How can I truly master this art?" Ananda looked into his eyes, his voice calm yet powerful. "Dear disciple," he said, "true mastery lies not only in observation. You must understand where emotions come from and how to work with them. Emotions are like wild horses. You cannot control them by force. You must first befriend them. Never suppress, understand." Rishi listened deeply. Something shifted within him. He realized it was time to go even deeper. From that moment on, he turned inward, examining the roots of his emotions, questioning the patterns and triggers that stirred them. Through quiet contemplation and honest introspection, he began to gently untangle the knot of his feelings. Rishi's realization that emotions must be understood, not suppressed, became the turning point in his journey. But the deeper path ahead required not only awareness, but also gentleness, especially toward himself. Following Ananda's guidance, Rishi began to explore a new and often overlooked dimension of emotional mastery: self-compassion. At first, it felt unfamiliar. He had always been quick to offer kindness to others, yet slow to offer it to himself. But over time, he began to treat himself with the same patience and care that he would offer a struggling friend. He noticed that harsh self-judgment only deepened his emotional pain. It didn't make him stronger, it made him shrink inside. So instead, he practiced speaking to himself with understanding, forgiving his mistakes, and allowing space for his emotions to arise without blame. This simple but profound shift became one of the most powerful tools in his emotional practice. And as he grew in compassion, another lesson emerged. Rishi learned that emotions, even the difficult ones, could be transformed into meaningful energy. Anger, rather than exploding into conflict, could be redirected into passion for justice or personal change. Sorrow, instead of drowning the heart, could be the doorway to deep empathy and a wellspring of compassion. News of Rishi's quiet transformation spread quickly across the village. People began to travel from near and far, seeking his wisdom, not just to hear his teachings, but to feel his calm presence and to learn how to navigate the storms within themselves. They came with anger, anxiety, grief, and fear. And Rishi met them all with the same stillness. He taught them that emotions weren't enemies. When understood and harnessed, they could become powerful allies, tools for growth, insight, and connection. The goal wasn't to eliminate emotion, but to learn how to sail through it rather than be tossed by its waves. One day, a young woman named Lila approached Rishi. Her eyes were clouded with worry, her breath unsteady. For years she had battled chronic anxiety, always feeling like something might go wrong, never at peace within herself. Without a word, Rishi invited her to sit. He listened, not to fix, not to advise, but simply to hold space. She spoke, her fears tumbling out like rain, and Rishi just sat, calm as a mountain, his presence a shelter in her storm. Finally, with tears in her eyes, Lila asked, "Master, how can I control my anxiety? How can I find peace in the middle of all this fear?" Rishi smiled softly and said, "Dear Lila, anxiety is a natural response to life's uncertainties. It's not your enemy. It's your body and mind calling for care. Let it flow, do not resist it. And remember, anxiety is not permanent. Like clouds in the sky, it will pass. If you allow yourself to fully feel it without judgment, you will begin to understand it. And in that understanding, peace will come." Encouraged by these words, Lila began to practice emotional awareness. She stopped running from her fear and instead acknowledged it gently. She accepted that anxiety was part of her emotional landscape, not something to be feared, but something to understand. In time, she discovered the truth Rishi had spoken of. Emotions rise and fall. They are visitors, not permanent residents. And with that realization, calmness returned to her spirit. As the years passed, Rishi's hermitage transformed. No longer just a humble dwelling, it became a sanctuary for those seeking emotional clarity and peace. Word of his teachings traveled far beyond the village. People from distant lands journeyed to sit at his feet. One day, a man named Arjun arrived. He had heard of the sage's remarkable gift and carried with him a deep hope, but also deep pain. Arjun's life had been consumed by anger. It had shattered his relationships, poisoned his work, and left him emotionally exhausted. When he arrived, Rishi greeted him with the same warmth he offered to all. He invited Arjun to sit, and as Arjun sat down, His face tight with frustration, his eyes full of silent storms, a new chapter in his healing began. As Arjun sat across from Rishi, weighed down by years of unresolved anger, he quietly began the most important journey of his life, the journey inward. Rishi, with deep empathy shining in his eyes, began guiding Arjun step by step through the art of emotional mastery. He didn't scold or offer instant solutions. Instead, he spoke gently, reminding Arjun that anger, like every emotion, was not something to be feared. It was a messenger. It arrived with a purpose, to tell us something about our unmet needs, our unspoken boundaries, or our hidden wounds. "If you can listen to your anger," Rishi said calmly, "instead of reacting blindly, it can teach you where healing is needed." He introduced Arjun to the practice of mindfulness, not as a vague concept, but as a daily tool. He taught him how to pause, how to create a space between the trigger and his reaction. In that space, even just a breath or two, a whole new choice could be made. "Anger is not the enemy," Rishi told him. "Reacting without awareness is." Day after day, Arjun practiced. He paid attention to the first sparks of irritation, the tight jaw, the rising heat in his chest, the quickening of breath. Slowly, he learned to catch those early signs and pause. At first, it was difficult, but over time, those pauses became moments of clarity. And in those moments, Arjun found power, not in exploding, but in choosing his response. With each passing week, his rage loosened its grip. What was once destructive now became fuel for growth. He began speaking with clarity instead of shouting with pain. His relationships began to mend. He started using his passion not to wound, but to build. One still evening, as twilight settled gently over the hermitage, Arjun and Rishi sat side by side beside a crackling fire. The flames danced and whispered beneath the stars, and the silence between them was warm, not heavy. With a softened voice, Arjun said, "Master, you've shown me how to control my emotions, especially my anger. I'll never forget what you've given me." Rishi smiled, his face glowing in the firelight. "My dear Arjun," he replied, "you must remember, it was always your strength. I only pointed the way. You walked the path. The real mastery is within you, in your ability to meet your emotions with wisdom and find peace within them." Arjun nodded slowly. He understood now, at a level beyond words. The art of controlling emotions wasn't a quick fix. It was a lifelong practice, one that required patience, the courage to look inward, and a deep compassion not only for others, but for oneself. In the years that followed, Rishi continued to guide many more seekers. His hermitage remained a place of quiet transformation, where people of all ages and backgrounds came in search of balance. And each person who left carried more than words. They carried wisdom, the kind that helps you face the waves of life without drowning in them. Rishi's life itself became a living teaching. He had shown that emotions are not enemies, but guides. That peace doesn't come from avoiding our inner storms, but from learning to sail through them. And his legacy was clear. We all have the power to understand and transform our emotions. We don't have to be swept away. We can ride the waves and even dance with them. The story of Rishi, the sage who mastered the art of emotional control, reminds us of a simple truth. Emotions are part of being human, but they don't have to rule us. With awareness, kindness, and practice, they can become the path to our own inner peace. So, may we each begin or continue that journey. Let us learn, like Rishi, to listen deeply, breathe mindfully, and transform our emotions into the seeds of serenity. If this story touched something in you, don't forget to subscribe to Buddhism Seeds, like, and share this video with those who might need it. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment below. Let's keep walking this path together.